We are live. Welcome everybody. Good evening. This is EdTech Mixed Plate, episode 30. We're coming at you live. We appreciate you joining us tonight if you're watching us live. And if not, we appreciate you watching us after the fact. No problem in that. We have some special guests with us tonight, and we'll introduce them in a second. But, actually, we'll just get to introductions first. I'm Mike Fricano. I'm a Tech Integration Specialist for Iolani School. Michelle, want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Michelle Colte, and I'm the librarian at Hawaikula Elementary School.
And I hear she's the librarian of the year. Is that true, Michelle?
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations on that.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
There's typically two more of us, Rachel and Megan, but they might not be joining us tonight. They're spending time with their family tonight. No problems there. But we have two special guests joining us tonight. We have Larry Kahn and Susan Davis. They are brand new to Hawaii, brand new Islanders, and they also work at Iolani School. But I'll let them introduce themselves. So if you could tell everybody who you are, where you work, what you do, and where you come from.
Right.
I'm Susan Davis. Obviously, I'm not Larry Kahn. And I teach 7th and 8th grade English at Iolani. And I have been working with technology in my classroom for as long as I can remember, but at least back into the last century.
Awesome.
I am Larry Kahn. I'm not Susan Davis. And I'm the Chief Information Officer at Iolani School. I've been working in technology since about 1982 and technology and education since 1999.
Cool. And you were in charge of ISTE SIG, right? Now called Networks or something like that?
Yes, yeah, now it's the Independent School Educators Network. I was the president of that group last year, and this year I'm serving as the past president. I'll do a little shameless plug. If anyone watching is going to be attending ISTE, we've been asked by ISTE to reprise the Maker Playground. So we'll be doing that in Philadelphia come summer. We're looking forward to that.
Yep. Yeah, me too. Are we all going to ISTE this year, Michelle? Are you going to ISTE?
I hope so.
Yeah, me too. My coworkers and I, we submitted a poster session proposal,
great.
So
Really
I did find out
I did a poster session too, so I'm probably competing against you.
Uh-oh.
There's lots of poster sessions. There's lots of posters.
Good luck to both of us. All right, so the topic for tonight is reflecting and sharing our experiences on a week-long series of professional development events that occurred a couple weeks ago here in Hawaii, dubbed Hawaii Education Week, and it consists of three PD opportunities: the HELS Summit, which is the Hawaii Education Leadership Summit, which a couple of us attended; the Schools of the Future Conference, which is Hawaii's big state education conference; and EdCamp Honolulu, the second annual EdCamp Honolulu, which we all attended actually, and we all attended Schools of the Future too. So we're going to talk about those three events, share our experiences, what we learned. I think all four of us presented at least once, right? So we'll share things that we presented and what we experienced there. But before we get to that, just have some a couple things to share with our audience out there. So first of all, don't forget to check out our EdTech Mixed Plate website. Link is there on my lower third. It's bit.ly/edtechmixedplate. We archive all of our episodes from to YouTube, as well as our show notes on our website. So feel free to go back and watch past episodes, check out all the resources that we've shared in the past. We also have a calendar of future events, and we have a Google form that we'd appreciate our audience to fill out if you want to join our mailing list, or if you want to ask us any important EdTech related questions. We'd be happy to address those in future episodes. So bit.ly/edtechmixedplate, check that out. And of course, with every episode of EdTech Mixed Plate, we have a show notes document. So the link is there for tonight. It's bit.ly/mixedplate 30, and that's a publicly accessible Google Doc, and we've given our viewers the right to comment, and we love it. We'd love for you guys to add your suggestions and comments to the document. If you have any resources that you want to share during our discussion tonight, we really appreciate that. The more resources we have in our document, the better it is for everyone. So check out that document tonight and after the fact, bit.ly/mixedplate30. Please check that out. We've got about 5 viewers tonight. We appreciate you guys joining us live. And we're trying out this 7 to 8. We used to come on from 8 to 9, but we've been trying it out an hour earlier, and it seems to be working out pretty well. Not too bad. But for those of you with us live, feel free to use the Q&A app. If you have any questions that you want to ask, or if you just want to comment on what we're talking about, you want to join the discussion, you can use the Q&A app to jump in, and we'll be checking that frequently to respond and answer as best we can. So feel free to check that out. The Q&A app is up and it's live. All right, so now that we're done with those logistics, let's get into our discussion. So a couple weeks ago, we had the Hawaii Education Leadership Summit, which Larry and I attended, actually. And then we had the Schools of the Future conference, our big annual EdTech conference. And it gets bigger every year. And we had our EdCamp. So I guess we'll just briefly talk about the Education Leadership Summit. That's been around for 2 years now. This is the second Leadership Summit. It's just before the Schools of the Future conference, and it was a pretty interesting experience. Do you have any opinions or want to share anything about it, Larry?
You know, one thing that was nice about it was how much of it was interactive. I came a little bit late, so for me it was very interactive because I missed kind of the most of the lecture component of it. But it was nice being able to go around to tables and have small discussions. I thought that was a terrific idea, and the more I go to professional development, the more I've come to really value the discussion part of it as opposed to the sit and get part of it. So I thought that was to be commended, and just making some great connections there.
Yeah, it's a very interesting format. I guess the way the Education Leadership Summit works is they bring in experts on specific topics. This year it was EdTech and one-to-one related, and so they brought in various experts from companies and from different backgrounds, and so what they do is they have these breakout sessions where we can jump from topic and table. I think it was about 3 rounds, maybe.
Yeah, there were 3 rounds, more than 3 tables. Yeah.
Yeah. So but yeah, it was nice to be able. It was kind of like a mini EdCamp in a sense. I mean, there was an expert at the table, which is a little different from EdCamp, but right. And they kind of did their introduction, but then we had the opportunity to have these mini discussions around the table about that specific topic that we were interested in. So it was nice to have that format. But then another big part of the Leadership Summit is I guess the purpose is to have your leadership team there, right? So it's not just to send who can go, but to have your principal, your vice principal, or your deans, but also to have your curriculum coordinators and your tech directors, to have those key people from the school participate in this event and also develop some kind of action plan in the end. So not just sit and learn and talk, but what are you going to do with that information when you go back to your school? Correct. So that was a really interesting format. And who was the keynote? What was his name? I'm blanking already. It's been so long.
Yeah, we could pull it up.
Yeah, we got notes. I can't remember his name though.
Yeah.
But he was a pretty good speaker. Very inspirational, very energetic kind of guy. Kept the conversations going. But we had a variety of topics. Which topic tables did you sit at, Larry? Do you remember?
I do. I went to the one from High Tech High, and that was a very good discussion. at a future PD, I'm hoping to swing by EdTech High to see what they're doing. But they're just doing some terrific. They could almost change their name because it's not just a high school and it's not all about the technology. But the name kind of makes it sound like that. But when you go into the discussions, it's about student-centric learning, and it's a K through 12 school. So I really enjoyed the way that they were putting the pedagogy first in terms of what they were doing and put the students at the center of that. So I got some terrific takeaways from that. And then another one I attended was on authorized youth policies, and that one was quite good as well, because again it was trying to involve the students more from it and moving to a less formal approach. Basically one takeaway from this discussion was you have to have a policy, but the policy can be as vague as possible, and you have your lawyers take a look at that, and that's fine. But then you also have guidelines, and the guidelines can be specific, and those can be student-friendly. You can have students involved in coming up with those. You can make those as positive as you want, and then you actually have the form. And again, the form does not have to be reviewed by the lawyers. It does not have to be in legalese. It can really be in a form that the students can understand. And I'd really, the takeaway I had from that I'm actually laying the groundwork on in my day job is working with the constituencies to do kind of a design thinking approach to this and get student involvement and really get the students to own it. So I'm excited about that. That was a concrete takeaway I had from the session. And then the third one was actually one that you recommended, Mike, which you attended as well. And that was the one at assessing the effectiveness of your technology program. And they had a lot of your one-to-one program. And they had a lot of quantitative data in their methodology, which was quite impressive. I'll let you speak to that.
I said that one that really stuck out for me was a conversation around future-ready schools and the Connect Ed initiative that President Obama made a formal announcement about that just last week, actually. And it's a pretty interesting initiative. It'll be. Are you guys familiar with the future-ready schools and the Connect Ed initiative? Have you guys heard of that?
Is that tied to the whole, did that come out of the Connected Educator Month, or is that a whole different?
No, it's an initiative out of the National Department of Education, so Arne Duncan and President Obama. Mm-hmm. And it was centered around providing a stable internet connection for all schools, giving students access to the internet. But from that came this Future-Ready Schools initiative as well, which is a pretty interesting program. I think that's going to help bring more resources to schools, provide more resources. But I think in the process, schools have to prove that they're ready for it and that they're interested and that they have to commit to this long-term plan to integrate technology and get the resources.
I'm curious about that, Mike, because do they have to have some idea of the pedagogy that they're going to use, rather than just like I have the wires and the plugs to be able to do this, or is there a sense of moving beyond the gizmos and having a better sense of how to move forward with the way classes are conducted, and then technology supports that?
That's definitely their focus. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not sure how it's. I know for Hawaii, there's a plan being created in place to have schools participate in this. I think it's like a 6-month program where they have to develop some kind of action plan around PD, shifting pedagogy, the way you teach, making sure that leadership as well as faculty and staff are committed to that plan, and then they'll go through a very rigorous, I guess, some kind of analysis of their plan. So some third party will come into the school and take a look at that plan and determine if the school is really ready, and then that's how they get the resources to purchase the technology and the PD and to get that and to actually put that plan into action. So it'd be really interesting to see how that plays out over the next couple of years. I see Peggy's with us.
Yep.
Yeah.
And she provided a link.
Yeah. So Peggy put the link in. I'm going to toss that link into the show notes for the Future Ready and for the Connect Ed initiative. Thanks for joining us, Peggy. Appreciate it. I'm going to highlight those resources that she's sharing for us. Peggy is a frequent EdTech mixed plate participant. We really appreciate her joining us every night.
Hey, Mike, when you just mentioned that...
I also said in the... I'm sorry, Michelle, go ahead. Go ahead.
Is it your sense that DOE schools are already involved in planning the Future Ready, or is it just both public and private, or it's more a public school initiative?
It's more a public school initiative, but I know there's some discussion about either partnering, public and private schools, or doing some kind of partnership.
Okay.
I think it's mainly public, but even like at our table, we were discussing, the importance of forming that partnership. But we're kind of already doing that with this this grant-based position that we have at Iolani. There's a lady whose job is specifically creating a partnership between public and private schools starting this year.
Oh, okay. Is she the person who was referenced at lunch? Is she working with Hawaii Association? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then, Mike, I was wondering, too, if you felt there was more attendance from, or actually, you didn't go last year, though, did you, Mike, to the Hawaii Educational Leadership Summit?
No, I didn't.
So last year, when we were there, there were a handful of folks from the one-to-one schools, but then not too many, and some of them who were there kind of weren't sure why they were there, or they didn't really participate too much in conversations. I just wondered if that was different this year, if those folks were definitely present and they were a major contributor in the conversations, or would you say it was still kind of a mixed bag of public and private, or?
I mean, it was. I'm not sure about the numbers, but I recall there being a fairly balanced mix of public and private schools at the Leadership Summit. And for the most part, everyone seemed fairly engaged. I mean, it's an interesting summit because it's there's more responsibility on us, right? It's not so much being guided every step of the way. We kind of have to take that responsibility as a leadership team, and whether we implement our action plan or not, whether we take back the information.
Right. But then that also kind of assumes that the folks they send are people who are educated or empowered to know some of those things. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Hey, Megan.
Hi, I got to
joining
a little bit. Actually, at my parents' home, so they're watching.
That's where I'm at. That's why my background is different. I'm in my brother-in-law's bedroom tonight.
Yeah, I'm in that bedroom too.
All right, let's move on to the schools of the future.
Okay.
So this was since Larry and Susan are new to Hawaii. This is your first time at Schools of the Future, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So what's your overall experience coming from the mainland? And I'm sure you participated in other larger EdTech events like that, or statewide events, conferences.
Correct. We've been at the Ames
Association of Independent Maryland Schools. We've been to their tech retreat.
They had a technology retreat on the Eastern Shore of Maryland, and then they had one, just a general educators conference, which oftentimes had a tech or progressive education component. And then in Texas, the Independent Schools of the American Southwest had an annual technology conference as well. But you know what was so nice here, I think, was the sense of public-private partnership, connection. You know, and that was just so impressive to us because I hadn't seen anything like that. You know, in either Maryland or Texas.
Yeah, I really sensed a reaching out from public to private and private to public to learn from one another, and I really like that a lot. That, you know, we're in this together, and yes, we have different paradigms somewhat, but we're sort of all dealing with the same problems. So I thought that was great. And it's funny, Larry and I have been going to conferences for a long time, and we have these great conversations because he goes from the point of view of somebody who's up in the clouds looking, you know, from 30,000 feet. Yeah, I don't mean up in the clouds. But 30,000 feet looking at the big picture, and I'm always looking at the nitty-gritty. What can I actually take into my classroom tomorrow? What can I talk to my neighbor teacher about tomorrow? And we have great conversations as a result of that. So it was great. I really enjoyed it.
Yep. Got charged up.
Yeah, we had two pretty good keynotes. We had Jane McGonigal, famous for game-based learning. She spoke at ISTE 2 years ago. And
Milton Chen.
who was it? Oh, Dr. Milton Chen. He's not there anymore, right? But he used to work for Edutopia. Is he still at Edutopia? I don't know. Oh, he's the emeritus. I don't know what that means, but emeritus at the George Lucas Education Foundation. But yeah, he was. What did you guys think of Jane's speech, her keynote?
Well, we have to confess, we'd already seen her twice before, so we were getting ready for our own presentation. So we didn't have to attend that one.
But we talked to people, and it sounded pretty similar to what we'd seen. So.
But I think
she spoke at ISTE 2 years ago, and it was fairly the same speech.
Well, similar, I think. But I think it's important for me as a teacher in the classroom to I'm not a gamer, but I need to understand gamers since 90% of my students are gamers, including the girls. And a lot of people used to think it wasn't the girls, but it includes the girls. And I mean, as an English teacher, I've noticed over the years how much students' idea of story has changed because of games, so that when I'm teaching something that has a quest in it, they get that right away. So there's that, and then there's the other idea of they understand failure in a very different way because of games. So they and school seems very alien to them, I think, in the way that school approaches failure. Because, school failure is it. You failed, pretty much move on to the next thing. You either do better or you fail again. But the idea of failure in a game is a do-over. And you get to learn from your mistakes and move on. Whereas in school, we haven't quite figured that out yet. So I've tried to think about how to incorporate that into my classes. And I give all kinds of do-overs as much as I can. I also try to give, I'm trying to work badges into my classes as a way, as a reward for leveling up, because it's a whole different motivation to get a badge than it is to get a grade. So, I think that as a paradigm, game-based education is important for us to think about how, even if we don't incorporate it into the class, it affects the way that we interact with our students.
And I think to follow up on that, another interesting point is we so oftentimes start off with the model of you start off with 100 points and then you take away, whether it's 100 or 10 or whatever that number is, and then you take away points. Whereas in the game model, you start off with 0, and then you build up your points as you master skills. And there are schools and educators, incorporating that into their practice, and that's a paradigm that the kids are used to and get inspired by. And lastly, that finding that sweet spot of attention. If we give kids something that's boring and too easy to do over and over and over again, if that was a game, it wouldn't sell because it was too easy and it was boring. Or if it was too hard, it wouldn't sell because no one can win it. So you got to find that sweet spot, and in these days, that collaborative sweet spot where you're working with others towards that common goal and building that mastery of skills and points. And to take that mindset into education is compelling, I believe.
Yeah, definitely.
I really liked the point that she made too about how gameplay builds resilience, and she emphasized the need for students to feel, I think she said, passion and joy in their gameplay, just like in the classroom, because then they're empowered to ask more questions and take chances, and that resonated for me.
Mm-hmm. Those photographs that she shows of the gamers, if you're not paying attention to that.
Yeah. That's right.
I wanted to mention a few people in the Q&A there. John, and he shared a interesting article titled "Schools Should Teach Students to Lead, Not Follow." So I'm going to toss that article into the show notes. Thanks for that, John. We appreciate you sharing that article with us. And then, Peggy said emeritus means that they're an honored faculty, but they're no longer teaching or retired. So he's an honoree of Edutopia, but he no longer works for them, I guess. I'm gonna grab that article and toss it in the show notes from John there.
Actually, John's article is a perfect one. It fits really well with a lot of the things that Dr. Chen said. I really loved, his example of that school in Philadelphia that's organized by projects, not by grade. And I think that question of, what is a great school to you? How would you define it? And I can't remember who he quoted, but he said something about kids running in as fast as they run out. I thought that was kind of a fun way to think about it. I loved his talk. I really liked what he had to say and how he engaged us with specific examples and invited us to take the multiple intelligence test and even share it with our students and how can we introduce creativity and things.
Yeah, definitely. And then I pulled a couple quotes from Jane. I thought interesting. That a lot of people took away was she said the opposite of play isn't work, it's depression. And I heard a lot of people say, "Yeah,
I love that one."
That's about right.
But actually, too, that's why I think, and we've been trying to do this at Halikula, it's so important that teachers still have that opportunity for play, because mandates that are imposed on us, I think it's really crucial to find that time in our day, or even for those who lead our professional development, to provide a little bit of play opportunity. So I think that's one thing I really liked about Schools of the Future and EdCamp, that I had that sense of learning through play and exploring. And actually, Larry, that's what I loved about the playgrounds at ISTE, and you mentioned the Maker Camp. I think I do almost the majority of my learning in the playgrounds and the poster sessions when I can interact with the folks.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. I've come to exactly the same place. I wish I'd come to it years ago. I'm telling you, the poster sessions and the playground is where it's happening.
But I totally agree with you too, Michelle. I mean, I think we're often trying to squeeze PD in, and teachers on their side are, trying to get out the door and go take care of 100 things that they need to take care of, and we don't build in that time for play. And we all know what happens if you don't, right? You take your notes home and you forget who said what, and you have this great idea, and you've forgot that you even wrote it down. You know, you just get back into the same old routine, and it's taking that time to play that allows you to really begin to explore how could I use this tool for effective learning in my classroom, or how could I, you know, what kind of questions does this raise for me? You know, that all those things.
Exactly, because I think we process it differently when we can be hands-on and doing something. And maybe, Megan, this is a perfect segue into your Iron Chef session, if you just want to quick talk about that too.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, go for it. It was fun.
So I had the opportunity to host the Iron Chef at Schools of Future. And let me go ahead and screen share. I'll go ahead and screen share our, let's see how I get that.
Yeah, the three of us, Megan, Michelle, and I, as well as Rachel. She's not here tonight, but we all participated together in an.
Yeah. Uh-oh. Are we okay?
Cool. So
you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can still hear you.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's right. Everyone, I think everyone on the panel tonight, except for, yes, everyone on the panel here tonight, right? Participated in the Iron Chef? Hello?
Larry did.
I did. Larry was. Susan was.
Susan was here.
So Susan, yes. And of course, Susan is part of the first Hawaii EdTech Iron Chef team. So, the EdTech Iron Chef, this workshop, it was a hands-on workshop, and I thought it was a really nice break from just the sit and listen that you normally get during a session. And what participants had to do, they came in. I gave them one challenge because my time was cut short. So normally with the Iron Chef, the EdTech Iron Chef challenge, it is actually started in 2013. The first Iron Chef was at Schools of the Future. No, I'm sorry, ISTE at 2013. And my Fricano, Michelle, Colte, and I were on a team during that session. And I thought, well, this would be a great idea to bring to Schools of the Future. So we went ahead. I went ahead and I got the information to host the workshop. And what I did was I kind of broke it down, and they had one challenge. So the challenge was called the Plate Lunch Challenge, and they were to create a message around a main ingredient. So they could show this in any way. I just thought that they were at Schools of the Future, they were learning about different apps, they were learning about different tools. This would be a great opportunity for them to try some tools out or try something that they were comfortable with in creating a digital message. And their secret ingredient was game-based learning. The link to the site is on the show notes, so I hope that you guys have an opportunity to go and take a look at it, because it was just amazing to see the final projects that these teams came up with in 30 minutes. They came up with very good 30 minutes. I couldn't believe it, but I am going to play.
Oh, no.
Of course.
I
have to.
Looking because you guys are the winners, so I am going to play that really quick. So again, their message was to talk about game-based learning. So let's see, and I'm sure, I hope you can hear it. Can you hear it?
Yep.
Building things.
Okay. Give me some more. Square men, like in Mario?
Yeah. Tools.
Bob the Builder?
Making buildings, making cities,
Minecraft.
creepy things.
Minecraft?
Creepy things.
Okay.
Okay. Money.
Investment. Financial literacy. Dice. What's it? Poker. Vegas.
Get out of jail free.
Monopoly.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Words.
Scrabble.
Oh.
It's lovely.
Who?
Let's see if the video came out.
Yeah.
What's that game called?
I think what we said at the end was, who said learning can't be fun?
Yeah.
Yes, who said learning can be fun?
That's a great
So,
way to end the video.
I have to tell you, that was so hard. We spent, you said we had about 33 minutes, and I think we spent 20 of those minutes trying to figure out what game-based education was. So, you know, we had to all on what we were working with to begin with, and then and I'm trying to remember the name of the app. Do you know the name of the app? I don't have it.
It's the game that Ellen plays on her talk show, right? Where you put the word above your head and you can't see it, and you got to give words.
No. That's not it.
Something like that.
Oh shoot, I can't remember the name of
a
it.
lot of fun.
It wasn't something that I used, but we're saying, okay, we've only got 10 minutes. Let's go with it. You know, how can we make a message out of that? So.
It's a great idea. It's a great idea.
And then I can only guess that we won because we were active on Twitter, because that was you had to get votes through your network. It wasn't a judge-based thing. You know, you had to send it out on Twitter. So I'm sure there are other worthy people. We just had a bigger network, I guess.
so
you did a good job.
But you know, that's part of the game too.
Right.
Carrying it out on to see who can get that. Like,
well, and it's true that certainly there are lots of great products out there that never get played, and that this is part of how we communicate today, right?
Yes.
It was a lot of fun, and it was exactly what I needed at the end of the day, and I really enjoyed being a part of it. I appreciate your putting it together.
Oh yes.
Yeah, it was a great change of pace. Yeah, it's a great.
And we didn't know each other at all. We've never met. Yeah, I think 2 of the people on the team knew each other, and so it was all completely new faces.
Right. And that was one of the things I tried to split up the norm that like Mike Fricano and Michelle was helping me take pictures, but Rachel Armstrong and of course our Shane. That's time. So I tried to break them up and get them into different groups. So that was nice. I thought it went really well.
Oh, I just looked up. The name of the app is called Heads Up.
Heads Up.
Heads Up. That's what it is. Heads Up.
And it records you as you're guessing. So I guess that's part of the deal. You have something to share on your social media.
Heads Up.
Yeah, it was a nice change of pace, and yeah, I kind of like the fact that it was at the end of the day. Kind of, it re-energized me at the end of a long day of presenting and learning and listening, and it was just a nice change of pace from the typical, you know, sit and listen to actually engaging with the rest of the audience and participating and creating.
I think that that's a really important point for us as teachers, too. I mean, I know that we know it here, but it's so important to give kids that hands-on time where they can learn from each other and that participatory culture. I think that's really crucial because then the kids are more engaged, and Mike, just like you said, energized, and Susan, like you said, you're meeting new people and getting new ideas, and it is exciting.
Well, and I mean, think about how this could be used as a PD with teachers. Because our time is limited, and if we ask teachers to engage in some kind of fun activity that they can then unpack at the end. So what did you learn from doing that? You know, I think if we did this with the faculty at Ilani, how we could have teachers have a task that seemed authentic to them, but do it in a fun way through the Iron Chef idea, and then take some time at the end to unpack it, so that I would say it took us 20 minutes to figure out, you know, the meaning of the term, And if you apply that back to the classroom, you know, how much do we give our kids enough time to actually think deeply about what things mean? No, I would say most of us probably don't. So, you know, I think these things are valuable. Plus, you know, you get that idea of you take a simple game like Iron Chef that everybody knows, even though I have to confess I've never seen the show. I know about it, and I've seen Cupcake Wars, so I have the idea. But you know, if they can see how to apply something like that, then maybe they're going to do something a little more than Jeopardy in their classrooms.
Yeah. So Peggy asked a good question. I don't know if she's talking about the Heads Up game. But if you are Peggy, it's called Heads Up. I think it's an iPad app, actually, yeah? You download it on your iPad, and then you put it on your head to play. But if you're talking about Iron Chef, Megan, can you explain like how other people can set up their own Iron Chef?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you go on to that link on where the link to the website for the Iron Chef, there should be. Let me go ahead and share screencast so I can show. Yeah.
And Megan put the link to her Iron Chef page. Yeah.
I did.
There you go.
And you can also take a look at the original event. So the original event will take you to where this all started. And I believe her name is Kristen Moroder. She so she went ahead and she discussed with the Young Educators group at ISTES, and they kind of came up with a process. It's a great article to go ahead and read. Then if you click on host your own, if you want to host your event, go ahead and click on that link right here, edtechchef.com, host your own, and you'll fill out a form, and Krista will give you the resources. She will basically give you the template to the site and all of the resources that you need. Each year she changes it up, so I believe the year that we did it in 2013, it was around one-to-one programming and trying to get a one-to-one system in schools. I believe last year it was about digital citizenship. So you might have those types of resources when you get that from her. You can go ahead and click right there and fill out the form. It's right there. You just fill out this form, and she will get back to you and you'll have everything you need to start.
Yeah.
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 Let me go ahead and unshare. How do I stop sharing? There it is.
So Megan and I are actually submitting a proposal for the Hawaii Google Summit coming up in March for a Google-based Iron Chef. Hopefully that gets accepted, and we'll have some game-based learning going on at the Hawaii Google Summit.
Yes.
That's a challenge coming on. A showdown.
Yeah. I just want to catch up on. See, this is from earlier in relation to what Larry was talking. Susan and Larry were talking about with the points, the point-based system and game-based learning. And John said perhaps allowing students input in how they will demonstrate their learning and create their own quests. Those student-centered learning, student-centered, student-generated quests for learning. It's an interesting idea.
Great.
Right. And
I
I
wonder
think
if that's more like, gamma? I'm sorry. Sorry, Susan? No, I was just saying, I wonder if that's related more to gamification, like gamifying your lessons rather than game-based learning.
I would agree.
Sure.
I would say more gamification than game-based learning, and the two oftentimes get and mixed up. You know, whereas the game-based learning is involved in a game to learn. Gamification is taking the concepts in games, but you're not necessarily playing a game and applying that to the construction of learning.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. All right, we're coming down to about 15 minutes left. I know Larry and Susan, you guys did a presentation together at Schools of the Future. You want to share a little bit about what your presentation was about?
Sure.
You want to start?
I'll start and let you. It kind of dovetails off of what Susan was talking about earlier about me having my head in the clouds and her feet on the ground. And to take that idea further, Susan actually came up with the name out of Shakespeare, out of Macbeth, tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow, and we basically came up with three tomorrows. Susan talked about the first tomorrow, which was she came up with a bunch of things that people can take back to their classrooms immediately. And we're going to be posting, because we just got the document, but we're going to be posting links to our presentation and links to the resources from our presentation on the document. And then the second tomorrow was I looked ahead to the year 2025. And we're dealing with that, and then reflected upon implications for learners, implications for learners, young learners and old learners, and really the future of our kids, and the changes we're going to be seeing in the next 10 years, according to the futurists and books and articles I've been reading, and the things already in play, are going to make us look back on the previous decade the way people look back on the previous century. So, Moore's Law is continuing, and what the things we're going to be seeing with fabrication labs, with robotics, with the automation of knowledge work, are going to be profound. So, especially in the case of the automation of knowledge work, the relationship between humans and machines is going to change greatly. And, there's no sense trying to be John Henry and trying to outsmart machines. But really think about what makes us human, and media literacy, information literacy, empathy, global learning, those types of things are what I addressed in my portion. And then the third tomorrow was really interactive. We wanted the session to be interactive, and to that end we had an active back channel, we had a lot of audience participation throughout, but we really went into a dive into some groupthink and discussion about what we should be doing tomorrow.
Right, and so we're sort of flipping it in our description to you, but in my section, which was focused on what can you take back to your classroom and excuse me, and begin to make the changes that we need now. I have to preface that by saying, as Larry and I prepared this, the closer we got to the presentation, the more and more we felt like we were kind of issuing a battle cry that yes, we understand that change is slow, but on one end, schools are slow to change, and on the other end, change is coming at us fast and furious, and we have to do something now. So we were really trying to get people a little riled up and thinking about how to go back and make changes immediately. And
we deliberately got increasingly provocative.
Yeah, we did that on purpose.
Try to get their attention, right?
Totally tried to get their attention. So the 5 things that I suggested, and I'm having to look back on my notes here. After I sort of talked about all these things that have happened to our thinking about education in the last decade, that we experience the world as flat. We learned from that we need to be more global in our thinking in our classes. We experienced Michael Wesch's ideas about information being ubiquitous. Clay Shirky has come in and told us that we can think about social networking as a way of doing good in the world, of aggregating for the common good. I felt like all those things were important, but we still have a lot of people who are grieving about the change that is holding us back. You know, that grief is time to deal with it and move on. And the 5 things that I suggested that you could do, practices that you could actually take back to your classroom. One is we need to all go back to the basics and ask better questions. We need to ask more provocative questions that can initiate change in our students' thinking and our own. So we need to be harder on each other in a way. We need to be more ambitious in the questions that we ask of each other at schools. And then the second thing that we need to do is, as part of that, is get out of the way. So let's go to John's question or his comment earlier about letting students design quests. We need to pose these great questions and then back off and let students figure them out. And that's a hard lesson for a teacher to learn, to stop and say, I wonder how you're going to solve that problem. Whereas teachers were always kind of coming in and saying, oh, you could do this, or oh, you could do that, because we're excited by it, when really we're not letting the kids do the learning. And then the second suggestion that I made was that we really need to design truly interactive classrooms. That we think we have interactive classrooms, but really they're just worksheets that are on. That's the short version of that one. And then the third one I packed a lot into, but it's really that if we think about redesigning our curricula, which at Iolani we're starting to look at because we've recently had a schedule change, which sparks all this good discussion about changing the curricula because we have to. That we really need to structure our classes around authentic assessments involving design thinking and that incorporate reflection. I mean, if we can do all that, then we're really going to be moving towards something that I think is going to be meaningful for our kids down the road. And let's see, I'm jumping ahead here. Number 4 was based on the National Council of Teachers of English. They've had a recommendation out since, I think in my notes said it's 2008 initially. Their recommendation is that we need to be teaching students to read and write with a mixed media. And we're still very text-based in all of our instruction. We don't teach students how to analyze mixed media. We don't teach students how to write mixed media. We might throw in, let's do a fun video project, but we don't really teach it as a way of communicating. I'm not saying that there aren't people out there that do that, because there are certainly lots of wonderful people out there that do that. But I have to say that the majority of the teachers that I'm around, or I have been around, are still pretty much text-based. And then the 5th one was to extend the conversation. So in other words, the conversation doesn't have to end when the kids walk out the door, but we need to figure out ways to extend that conversation into more of a blended context, and then and through that we can connect with the world. So I wasn't saying anything really provocative at all, I don't think.
No, of course not.
Actually, Susan, I love what you said, because at first when Larry shared, I have to say I felt a little bit of panic, because it sounded like there's going to be a bigger gap between public and private schools, because I just was thinking right away of 3D printers and laser cutters and the things that we don't necessarily have in public schools. But and it's not what Larry said, it's just what I heard, when I'm thinking of these new trends. But then, Susan, what you listed out are things that anybody can do right now in their classroom, and it's examples of good teaching. And so I find that really exciting and actually validating, because that's what we've been trying to do at Halikula. So I think that's really exciting. And
right. I think there are people out there doing this, but and I guess part of our call to arms in our presentation was, we know that a lot of people are doing this. You may not be doing it as much as you think you are, so question yourself. You might think you're there, but maybe you're not quite there yet. And then the other thing is, look to your neighbor. help your neighbor make this adjustment. I mean, we're not necessarily reaching out to our colleagues and challenging them the way that we need to, if there's going to be real change.
And you know, both challenging and supporting. Oh, sorry, Larry, go ahead.
Well, the other push is, and where we see these changes, they're in pockets, and they're largely countercultural, and it needs to become cultural. It needs to become cultural instead of countercultural.
And then actually, we were at an EdCamp session together on Saturday, and it was how to encourage, our colleagues to use social media. Because I think that's one thing that needs to happen too. At the end of, right after Iron Chef, I think Megan and I were both so excited with how the session went and everything that went on. But somebody said to Megan and me that, even though it was a great conference, she's going to go home and forget it all. And she said, you know how these kinds of things go. And I thought, no, I wasn't feeling that way at all. I was so excited by the connections I had made and the things I had done and learned. And I think it kind of comes to that we need to keep those conversations going. And Larry, like you were just saying, kind of tap those pockets, of innovation and find them. And even like you folks referenced earlier, I think at this Schools of the Future, I felt like I connected more with many private and public school people. It wasn't just that I went and I stayed with my own teachers from my school. But, that's happened over time by going to things like EdCamp that you folks ran. And Megan, I think through, HISTE, like how you folks are fostering the communication. It's really great to see what's happening in Hawaii.
Yeah, I mean, it's through these PD opportunities that we're able to accomplish those things. It just needs to happen more often.
Yes.
And PD needs to be supported more often.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, so we're coming down to our final couple of minutes. So, any last-minute things about Schools of the Future?
Well,
dying comment?
Much about EdCamp and EdCamp. It's such a fantastic model. Because again, whereas the Leadership Summit was fine, that the topics were decided ahead of time.
Very selected.
Financial reasons. There's vendor involvement, and there's it's a soft pitch, but there's still some element of pitch, and we appreciate their support, and it's needed so that we can have those types of sessions. But the beauty of EdCamp is it's just so organic and crowdsourced. And because it's crowdsourced, no one's walking in with a PowerPoint presentation. At times we may have to work on group dynamics and facilitation to let everyone speak and get their voice heard. But I found that at the sessions I attended, I didn't sense anyone was dominating it. I had a sense that it was a real conversation, and that was just terrific.
Right. I totally agree that energy that you were talking about earlier, that the combination of Schools of the Future and EdCamp and taking that energy back into the classroom and the school, people were saying, hey, they notice that energy when you bring it back. And I feel the same way about ISTE. I think that's one of the reasons why I recommend ISTE. Because these are, and I've been to a lot of different conferences, but you want to go someplace where people are excited about education. And we need to let that excitement bubble over. And those are two great places where we're able to do that.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
Yeah, I felt there just seemed to be more energy in EdCamp this year than last year. I mean, last year, of course, it was the first one. It was very new for everybody, and people weren't really sure what to expect. They had a lot of newcomers this year, but a lot of returning people. And, I mean, there were so many sessions being suggested for the board that we had to start combining, and some we just couldn't take anymore because there wasn't any room left. And it was exciting to see that the board fill up so fast with people eager and ready to suggest topics and to be willing to facilitate too. It was really exciting to watch that occur. Any specific topics that you guys participated in? I wasn't able to really participate in any. I know there was a really good session occurring with Larry and Susan in that small conference space. I forget what the topic was.
Yeah, that was, we were following up on our presentation at Schools of the Future
because what came out of our discussion at the end of our presentation was, well, how can we have these conversations with our colleagues? You know, how can we move the people who are either still mourning or seemingly movable, or, you know, how can we bring this back to our schools, the shifts that we feel so deeply about education today? And, you know, I'm not sure that we have all the answers. It's great to have the conversation.
Yeah, it was. I stepped in that conversation and take pictures and videos of you guys, and I had to stay a couple minutes longer because it was just such an interesting conversation going on in there with the types of things people were talking about and different ideas and opinions that were brought up.
Well, and
Really,
every school is a different culture. So, you know, you have to take these things back to your own school culture and sort of figure out how's this going to work.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's just about 8 o'clock, so we got to wrap this up. Peggy, she gave me a special request in the Q&A to make my website embeddable, and it's done, Peggy. So go ahead and embed away if you want to.
Mm-hmm.
You are a multitasker.
It's just so easy with Google Sites. 2 clicks and I'm done. But yeah, we all presented. I posted my 2 presentations in the show notes, and it's available on my website, so feel free to check that out. And I don't know if Michelle or Megan, if you guys presented anything else you want to share in our show notes, feel free to do that. And we appreciate everyone sticking with us. I see Jed just joined us. I don't know if he was watching earlier, but he just joined us via the Q&A. So we appreciate you watching live with us, Jed. And Peggy, as always. And thanks for all of our other viewers out there for watching live. We appreciate it. Check out our show notes at bit.ly/mixedplate30. We added a bunch of resources from tonight's discussion to the show notes, so there's lots of good stuff in there. And don't forget to check out our website, Mixedplate. We'll include the archive of tonight's episode as well as our show notes, and check out the calendar for future episodes of EdTech Mixedplate, and join our mailing list and ask questions if you'd like. And I would especially like to thank Larry and Susan for joining us tonight. Appreciate you guys coming on and sharing your experiences and your opinions and your resources with us and our audience. We definitely appreciate that, guys.
Sure.
Thanks for having us. It was fun.
Yeah, definitely. And any last minute words from anybody?
Good night.
No, good night. No, we had a long weekend. We have a long week ahead. We have a long week ahead of us. It's a holiday week. So happy Thanksgiving to everybody out there, to our viewers and our participants and our audience. And we'll see you guys next time on EdTech Mixedplate. Have a good night.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night.